So let's do another example by hand. Remember, the first thing we need is a 1. So looking at our options here for the 3 different rows, the only one that divides evenly by whatever number's in front of x would be the first row, because everything can be divided by 4 evenly. And it's always nice to avoid fractions if you can. So let's divide everything by 4. So we get 1, 2, -1, and 1. We can just write the other rows out for now and as our augmented matrix, and then we'll start working in the next step. So next we want to combine row 1 and 2 to make a 0. So to do that, we're going to multiply row 1 by -3. So that becomes -3, -6, +3, and -3. So if we combine that with row 2, (3 and -3 is 0, 8 and -6 is 2, 5 and 3 is 8, -11, -3, that's -14. So we got that by doing row 2 and -3 times row 1. Now to cancel out this -2, we're going to need to combine it with row 1 and multiply by 2. So let's multiply 2 times row 1. So we get 2, 4, -2, 2. So we'll combine row 3 and 2 times row 1. There's 2 times row 1, combine it with row 3. -2 and 2 is 0. 1 and 4 is 5. 12 and -2 is 10. -17 and 2 is -15. So now that we've got zeros in our first column there, we can move on. We're going to combine those two to cancel out one of the y terms, just like solving equations. But first we want a 0 and a 1. We can take either one of these because 2 divides evenly and so does 5. So let's just divide by 2. 2 divided by 2 is 1. 8 divided by 2 is 4. -14 divided by 2 is -7. And we can actually, as our scratch work, divide by 5 all the way through here. And when we do that, we get 0, 1, 2, -3. Now the reason for that is it'll make combining easy, because now we have a 1 and a 1. So all we need to do is subtract. So we're going to do this row 2 minus this blue row 3 over here. So we have 1, 0 minus 0 1 minus 1, 4 minus 2, and negative 7 minus negative 3 is negative 4. Now we want a 1 here, so we need to divide by 2. So let's write our first two rows. And now we're dividing by 2, so we get 1 and negative 2. So there we have row echelon form. So at this point we could do back substitution and solve. So we'd have y plus 4 times negative 2 equals negative 7. It's y minus 8. If you add 8 over, you get y equals 1. So then we would have x plus 2 times y is 1, minus 1 times z is negative 2. That's going to equal 1. So that's 2 plus 2 is 4. Subtract 4 over 1 minus 4. We get x equals negative 3. So negative 3, 1, negative 2. So you can go a little bit further by keeping it in matrix form and getting to what's called reduced row echelon form. And that's when you have only 1s going diagonally. Everything else is a 0. So this becomes a 0, and 0's here and here. So to do that, you just continue to do the same things that we did before, but we're going to use row 3 to cancel out these numbers. So to cancel out a 4, we're going to multiply by negative 4 and add. So we'll keep our bottom row the same, 0, 0, 1, negative 2. Now to cancel out the 4, we need to multiply by negative 4. So it becomes negative 4 and 8, and add. 0, 0 plus 1, negative 4 plus 4 is 0, 8 and negative 7 is 1. And as you see, we have y equals 1, which is what we got when we back substituted. Then, to cancel out the 1, we just need to add. So 1 and 0 is 1, 2 and 0 is 2, negative 1 and 1 is 0, 1 minus 2 is negative 1. And our last step is to cancel out that 2, so do that by multiplying by negative 2 to create a negative 2 and then add. So we get 1, negative 2 and 2 is 0, negative 2 times 0 plus 0 is 0. Negative 2 times 1 is negative 2, plus negative 1 is negative 3. And then we can keep our other two rows, 0, 1, 0, 1, and 0, 0, 1, negative 2. And as you can see, that does get the same answers, negative 3, 1, and negative 2, as back substitution. So when you're done, this final column is just your solutions. X is negative 3, y equals 1, z equals negative 2. And you can do that on your calculator. If you enter it as a matrix, so let's edit that 3 by 4. Go back up and we'll enter the original matrix. 4, 8, negative 4. And 4. 3, 8, 5. Negative 11. Negative 2. 1. 12. Negative 17. And quit. Then we go back to matrix. Now this time when we go over to math, we're going to scroll down a little bit further to RREF, that's reduced row echelon form. So select that and then tell it which matrix to convert to reduce to our echelon form, so we'll tell matrix A, because that's where we just entered. And we get the same answers, -3, 1, -2.